because we're talking about family, do you want a fun anecdote, an interesting fun fact?
So,
All right. So the phrase, blood is thicker than water. Yeah. What does that mean to you? Do you know what that means?
I mean, generally, my understanding of it and perception is that family over anything. It's
Right. So that's the adopted
mhm.
meaning. Now it's interesting that the modern adopted meaning is the opposite to the actual phrase, because the actual phrase, ready for this, is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. So the blood of the covenant of the people that you choose is thicker than,
No way. This is the full.
yeah.
Mm.
So right, it's
Mm.
actually the opposite. So I think that's really, really interesting, considering that we're going to sit here and we're going to talk about working with family. So roll those credits. From Sydney, Australia, all the way to Portland, USA, two misfits hang out after class to riff on the B-sides of professional life. These are your professional misfits. All the way from Sydney, Australia, I am your host, Christopher Sellers.
From Portland, IPOX. Oh my God.
From Portland, IPOX. Do you want to leave this in? Let's leave this in.
Let's leave it in. Let's leave it in. Just so the misfits know, I got stung in the face by a bee. So I'm gonna blame it on the bee today. It's the fucking venom going to my brain. All the way from Portland, Oregon, Brody IPOX.
And we are your professional misfits, where we riff on the B-sides of professional life. Welcome back, misfits. So season 2, as you all know by now, is about relationships. And this particular little mini arc on episode 12 is we're discussing familial relationships. Mums and dads, brothers and sisters, all that sort of stuff. Maybe husbands and wives, we don't know yet. That's up to you. And today's subject is, can you, should you, would you, have you ever work with family? So fun fact, I did a tiny bit of research, Mr. IPOX, before, right? I know how you love stats.
No, I'm Mr. Portland.
Yeah. Nice. I know how you all love stats, misfits, but here's the one fun stat I'll get out of the way, right? So family businesses, right? The percentage of family businesses in Australia is 67% of all business are small family businesses. You're right. You've dropped your jaw. It gets better. How much do you think it would be in the States? Higher or lower?
Lower.
Higher? How much higher?
Cannot be by much.
87%.
No, what?
Bro, this is the stats that I pulled, and if I had done my proper research, I could probably quickly Google search it and go, "This is what it was," but it was like an infographic, blah blah blah. So 67% of all Australian businesses are like a family business. I don't know whether that's like small family business or just like family business.
Right.
But I do remember specifically the stat for the US was 87% of. Yeah, it's interesting because over here, I know like the throw around fact is 90% of all businesses are small businesses, and then out of those, 67% of say 90 is are family businesses. So this starts to paint the picture of what we wanted to get into misfits, and especially the LinkedIn misfits who love to, wear your white professional collars and sharpen your ties and do all that sort of shit. There is a rather large world out there that behaves and operates by a completely different set of rules and standards and culture. Don't play with your microphone while I'm talking because they can hear it, bro.
I can isolate my trap.
All right. All right. So this is what we're talking about. So, mom and pop shops, even the cafe that I work at on the weekend where it's Tom, it's his older brother, and Tom's nephew. You know what I mean? So that's the little La Familia is very important to the Mediterraneans. So I guess we're asking. I'll start with you, B. Like, I know you don't currently, or I assume you don't, but would you ever work with family, or like would you work with your folks growing up, or is there, a role, is that on the horizon for you? Is that ever an option?
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because like where I'm at and the things that I do on a business side is, I play a large part in development in a lot of the businesses that I work with.
Mm-hmm.
And I also drive a lot of people to make more personal decisions about their business. So I've tried to lightly influence family that I have the resources
You've
and I
tried to
have the
advise,
knowledge.
yeah.
I can help if you need me to, if you're interested in starting something or doing something. Which family that's listening, that's still an offer. Um,
All this could get controversial. Yes, go on.
yeah. So I yes, I would, and actually, so I'm on like kind of all of my contract work is done. I'm a full time misfit. I do work for one of the family businesses on the back end as kind of the IT guy when they need some help, when they got that stuff going on. So I, I, it was weird. You said those statistics, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, no, there's no way. And then I'm like, oh, I've operated with my family and around my family and doing
Yeah,
so
yeah,
with
yeah.
this whole entire time. It is way more common than you have the conception of, because when you think of business and you think of corporate and the stats, right? You want to think
Yeah.
of like Walmart and Target and these big giant conglomerates, when yeah, they make up a large portion of the revenue made. That
And
doesn't
they
mean
may hire a lot of people, but that doesn't mean, yeah.
right, right. And that was an awesome perspective shift for me. Like it clicked in real time. I was like, oh yeah, dude, that's probably true. Because look, I mean, I think under a lot of the conditions, people have to.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's been times when I've had to, like whether it's for my own make ends meet or when it's to help the family or whatever
Yep.
they're doing. You kind of show up. You just show up, and I will say this: that doesn't mean it's always great or comfortable.
Oh, we'll get into that, no doubt.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But yeah, I would, and I do, and I think there is a healthy way to go about it. And yeah, I'm curious about you. You know what I mean? Because we've had some personal conversations, and
We have.
if there's anything in the past maybe that has reflected you guys working together, or you know what I mean? Where's your head at? Because you've
Right.
got something coming in the future too for the
I
misfits
do.
that are following along in
I
the
do. Yeah, look, there's no fucking way. And I say that with all the love in my heart. I'm fortunate that probably only my brother and a random uncle might listen to this podcast. So I know wherever Luke is right now in Tasmania, he probably spat take and is shitting himself laughing because he knows exactly what I'm talking about. Look, now it's not. I'll be clear. This isn't about a conflict of well, okay, it's partly a conflict of personality. There's just no fucking way any one of us would work together. Like even starting from top down, when you look at my folks, like our old man's an engineer, our mum's a medical professional, like Glenn's an absolute fucking control freak who
drastically different
bro,
personalities for those fields. Yeah.
right, massive control freak with like and no like an allergy to any kind of risk, right? Like a
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
genetic allergy to any kind of risk. So there's that. Every time we're moving house, like he has to take charge, and like you're gonna need a spare set of hands, and you're gonna like whatever, and you're quietly like slitting your wrists in the corner. You know what I mean? And look, mum would be a great accountant, but she sort of stay out of the way and be impartial and doesn't want to make waves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's that dynamic. So and they've both been comfortable working for the man their entire lives. So they
Mm.
never even stepped out to consult or like work contract or anything like that. They've always been employed.
Right, set themselves into the situation where they might work with family.
Right, yeah. So even the concept of stepping out on their own, um, no, so there's that. But also all of our skill sets within our family are fair to say quite diverse. Like again, our man's an engineer, mum's a medical professional, the bro went into IT, dare I like creative black sheep, let's say. So what business would the four of us or even two of us possibly start or collaborate on? You know what I mean? It's not like the folks had the local restaurant. We grew up in the local restaurant, sort of learned those skills, learned that trade.
Oh,
And
right. What would have naturally presented itself, you mean?
yeah, so that's not been my environment. Now, I guess there's one caveat, I guess, to this story is that when cycle back probably about 10 or 15 years when I was producing my first feature film, my first indie feature that
Mhm.
I'd written. I'd yeah, fully cast, full production crew, like proper production professional rollout. Um, and cast it all, and of course I was the lead because this was going to be my fucking opus film and all this sort of shit, and we needed someone to play my younger brother, funnily enough, and we went through a handful of actors and they just quite weren't hitting it. And then I said to my AD at the time, it's like, should audition Luke. And so I asked him, said, "Hey, would you be down for this?" And he's like, "Oh yeah," shrugged his shoulders, like, "Yeah, all right." Um, did a 5 minute recorded audition, then gave him a few changes to see like how we could adapt to it and what sort of version he'd give. Recorded all
Mhm.
of that,
Mhm.
took it back to my AD, and she's like, "He's it." So I ended up casting him. So and then as we moved through production, I hope Luke's listening to this, learned all his lines, showed up on set, was professional, could take direction, hit his scenes, did everything required of him that was required. And then this shoot, it was golden for about 2 or 3 weeks. And then there was a few key scenes that we had to get like months later, which is a complete nightmare, as you all know. And in the end, the film never ended up getting completed. But the upshot of this is like, would I ever work with family? Like, no fucking chance. But have I had a family member work with me? And yes, I have. So, but
Mm.
I guess it would be up to Luke
Mm.
to describe, how
I
that experience was.
I wonder if we put a pin there and
Yeah.
clarify that for the misfits, there is a difference in that, working for the family and the
Yeah.
family working with you, because it's a much different dynamic, I think, that presents itself. And I think for people like you that don't, no way, don't fucking bring that here, let's not fucking add the extra stress, let's not do that.
Mm.
I think that is the only option if it were to work, and not to testify to you being a control freak or you needing to have the reins. I think it's just in operation's sake, like you said, the difference in personalities can be drastic sometimes, and if you
Yeah.
can't leverage that in a professional way like you said your brother did.
Totally, 100%. It goes. I think it goes back to. I think it might have been episode 2 or something of this season when we're talking about what makes a good business partner, and we unpack things like trust and even taking your hands off something to let the other person do their job. Like if I
Right.
was working with my folks, I know there's no fucking way. I know. It just makes my shoulders arc. Um, yeah. So, but look, okay. So, no, I haven't experienced it. It's not something that I would aim for. I've worked with enough couples and with enough families to kind of see, from what you're describing, to observe at least there's a sober middle ground here. Like, not every couple is awful and a nightmare. I always joke with the boys at the cafe, because like Italians and family is everything, and I'm not family, so I know how it is, and rah 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 rah. Um, and that okay, and Tom's joins an interesting case study. So here you go. So Tom, like local neighborhood cafe, like super cool joint, and if I'm not working there on a weekend, then I'm there every day, like drinking espresso, hanging with the neighbors. Tom's got two kids. His eldest is about, I think she's 14 now, so he's got a 14-year-old daughter. She's just started sort of working on the weekends.
Okay.
Right? Work on the weekends for a bit of part-time cash. So this is what's been interesting, I guess, and this gets to the heart of what we want to unpack here is how do you get into this and how does it sort of start? And I was really, really interested to see how Tom would treat his daughter, because a lot of dads, can be, she's my special little girl and she's my princess, or can also go the other way and go do this, do that, and like just like really ride them. Tom is a great fucking boss with me, and he's a great boss to his daughter as well, because and you know what, and she's really easy to work with, and she's got a great fucking attitude, because you say, hey, can you please take care of this? She will. She's been there a couple of weeks now where she's getting to be proactive around the tables. She's a bit more comfortable with the customers. You can carry 2 or 3 plates, all this sort of stuff. So that's really cool to see, so it seems from the outside that her first taste of the family business seems to be a positive one so far, and I'd imagine that's a big thing for a lot of misfits at home. I'm talking about hospo, but there's got to be like a ton of mechanics, a ton of tradies. My ex, her brother and her dad work together as electricians everywhere.
Tons. I mean, yeah. So the in-laws, they all drive truck, and
Right.
they drive truck together. You know what I mean? And on the radios, and stressful routes, and the back roads here in Oregon, and then we all come together, and there's not a lick of it involved in that scenario.
Well, that's interesting to me, because it just made me realize, I guess there'd be a lot of support and understanding for a particular industry if you're sharing it with your family.
I wouldn't know. I've never shared an industry.
Yeah, it is a half question. I guess that's Misfits. Let us know.
Please.
Because it's one thing if you go to work. You go to work, you have a shit day, you come home, and then you got to unpack to, the
and
mystery.
Someone fucking understands.
Right, and they get it.
And you connect with them on an emotional, hopefully on an emotional level that's feels safe. Yeah, that's crazy. Me and Chris, just so you guys know that are just tuning in, me and Chris are, for better or worse, the black sheeps of our family in terms of career path. And I've done something that's completely different than anything that any of my family's doing. And as far as I understand from Chris, that's the same scenario. And I'm interested.
Well, because you mentioned earlier, because I've got some big things coming up. That's what's been a real. I guess this is the flip side. Okay, let's do this first. Let's explore the benefits of working with fam, and then let's explore some of the negatives. So I guess let's see, working with family. This is purely by observation. I guess it's nice to share in an industry with something. I guess like if you're building something like a small business, or a professional profile, or some sort of legacy, I guess that's nice to build with someone. If you're building it with children, then that it'd be good. You're building the castle to hand off to the kids. Something like that. I know a few craftsmen. I guess it would be super cool to sort of teach and train with your kids or with a partner. You know what I mean?
Generational. I think that's such a fucking cool thing.
Yeah, I mentioned before, like something that I really enjoy and I'm really satisfied by is like teaching you or giving you something that you can't lose, and trade skills.
I love that. Giving you
Yeah,
something you can't lose.
right. And trade skills has got to be a big one. You
Hmm.
know what I mean?
Hmm.
If you can, build a box and lay a floor here, you can do that anywhere in the world. If you can
Right.
weld a joint here, you can do that anywhere in the world. You know what I mean? And if you're doing that with kids or a partner,
And there's an importance to all that, right? Yeah, that lays some groundwork for mental fortitude, that I think not a lot of people get. And then again, to have that familial camaraderie, like, holy shit, and especially if it is a healthy setting, you know what I mean? If it
yeah,
if it
that's it.
sucks,
Well,
like
we'll get to that. We'll get
yeah,
to that.
but yeah, a healthy setting to where all the pistons are firing and things are connecting. That just feels like, in my mind's eye, that would be such a comfortable place to be.
And I'd imagine it's really communal as well, because if you think about it, like whatever business you do and whatever relationships you have with people, like that you bring into your shop, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and customers are paying you, and the neighborhood's paying you, and whatever. Then that money, you know, that's the clothes on your kids' back. That's the food on the table. That's your holiday at the end of the year. So there's a real that sort of communal sense of ecosystem of and that's what I think we mentioned this last week, of the difference of like teaching your kids or demonstrating by example,
Yep.
and building a business, like having a trade, building skills, building something together, is something that's very demonstrable.
Yep.
Teaching them how to deal with people, again, in the best, when
Right.
applied in the best possible way.
Right. Like your example with the calf. I mean,
Yeah.
like, not just that their business has a great setting and he's a good boss. It takes a little more groundwork than that, right? You know what
Oh,
I mean? They would have had to
100%.
have a solid relationship for her to come in and feel comfortable enough to expand and grow into that position too. And it's
Yeah, and yes, a lot of things, and it really, as a side note, it really puts paid to this bullshit rumor of like, oh, Gen Z don't want to work. Like, no, like that's
they don't
cat
want to work. It's something they don't want to do. Like that, that's my
right.
biggest thing. I think genuinely Gen Z, that whole fucking mantra is like such, like you said, such horseshit. I mean, like,
Yeah.
look at the things that a ton of them are accomplishing, and even in form of content. Look, it's hilarious too, because a lot of these businesses made fun of Gen Z and are like, they don't want to work. Now you're hiring them to do the work that's making your businesses
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
palpable in
Yeah.
this age. It's just the
Yeah.
most fascinating thing. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
that's a little tangent.
No. Yeah. Totally. So I imagine. So again, yeah, working with family, I imagine these are a lot of the positives. Um, there are, of course, negatives. Yeah. And similar to working with whoever you're in a relationship with, is like if you live together, and if you're family, and if you work together,
Mm-hmm.
that means you can never fucking get away from them, man. Like,
It's
where's
all
yeah, where's the downtime? You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. It's a tricky bag sometimes. I mean, Tiff, for all intents and purposes, has built her business, Coconut Creek, from the ground up. I've been a help, where I can do those things. But moving into this conversation, one of the things that sucks, and again, nothing, nothing to her or myself even, there, with the experience you have, you want to bring that to the table and you want to
Mm,
move those pieces in the way that they should. If someone's not ready, if they don't know how to do the work, if they're overwhelmed, it's hard to be the one to push, because now you have that familial sense where, like, I understand you and I know you're
yeah.
overwhelmed and I know you're going through this and I know everything else too. Like you said, I know you've got the kids and ends meet in the bills and all these things that we think about on a day-to-day basis that make it hard to push that envelope with someone you're close to. That's where I fall short. I always have. Even building a business with my best friend, before he passed, we couldn't get real with each other and it stay professional.
Yeah.
It was either something we didn't say or it was something that was way overcomplicated, and
Right.
it seems like that happens a lot, and maybe that's a me thing. I'm willing to admit that I play a part in that. I'm not sure what it is because I have great communication professionally, but yeah, again, when you attach that
Well,
one.
those right. So when those it goes, we talked about it in criticism. Yeah, when those lines are blurred, when there's other things on the table rather than the idea.
Yep.
And okay, and so here's the classic bad Italian cafe example, right? So you've got dad who's the boss because it's a patriarchal setup.
Mhm, mhm.
You've got mum who might work in the cafe, or she might be on the front register. So there's that. You'll have Pops, and he'll be out the back doing dishes and pottering around and fixing broken light globes and just kind of getting under your feet, basically. You'll have the son of the dad who just like think he's the hot shot and untouchable because my dad's the boss. If there's another girl there, she'll be running the floor. um this sort of shit. And if I'm the third, if you're anyone else coming in, like, heaven fucking forbid, right? And I've worked at these sorts of places, and so it doesn't matter if the dad's right, wrong, black, green, blue is like his way or the highway, because this is the way it is. The wife is passive aggressive because she's sort of passively wrestling for control and popularity out of the two of them. The young son is a cunt and useless because he
Entitled.
can't be fired. You know what I mean? That's the thing. Like these the healthy dynamics that we can talked about before, like the unhealthy versions are just as viable. And this isn't. I mean, family businesses aren't any better off than everyday businesses. But I'm sure you all recognize these sorts of dynamics, and it makes you, again, you season in the pressure to make money because that's what a business is. You season in the responsibility for the man to make the business work, and why aren't you Fernando, and why aren't you doing it, and Tony's killing it down the road, and like I'm stuck here, my sister got married, why is it what they came in, they didn't order anything, why did you speak to them like that? It's
Yep.
it, when the I here okay here we go when the family problems start to reach the front of the business. That's, man, it's dramatic.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm lucky. The business that I'm referencing is a restaurant, is the family business. And the thing is, nobody's worked in the restaurant together other than my aunt, my grandmother, and my sister
Right.
as the family. So the son hasn't come in and worked under mom who owns it. Dad hasn't come in and been a part of the business. It's just been extended family, right? And it's so funny because not even in a toxic way or bad way, it's just that example, right? Like there's just family dynamics that make shit difficult. It just makes shit difficult. And if you don't have a solid head on it, it's eventually going to exhaust itself, right?
Mm,
Because, like you said, they don't untwine. Like you are family at the end of the day. So even though you guys punch out, you turn off the lights, you go home, you still got to look at them, and you just spend
yeah,
fucking 8 hours
yeah, yeah,
bitching
yeah.
at each other for the better part of a day, and
Mm,
that's got to have a drastic impact on the overall health of the family. I
mm,
mean, like, and that's one of the things that I think with the negative side of things that I think gets lost on people. You said it well. There's a pressure. They've got to. This is how they provide.
right.
This is the vitality
Yeah.
of the family. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
more than just coming in and making it work.
Yeah.
Like you've got to eat too. Like that's a big pressure. We all know that one. We all know that one.
And I guess also if in other professions, let's say something more white collar, like let's say you're a junior solicitor and dad's on the runs the firm or whatever, or mum runs the firm.
Mhm.
Um, it would be difficult, I guess, to have like there's an expectation of you then, is there not?
Mm, mm.
Right? And in larger firms or even medium-sized businesses, like
Oh
you're
shit! And imagine dad's a fucking high performer. I mean,
right,
good
you're the son and
Christ.
daughter of, you're brought in as a junior. It's similar sort of principles, like who's going to guide you, who's going to hold you accountable, are you going to be able to get away with shit, like push come to shove, would dad fire you if you fucked up,
Mhm,
you know
mhm.
um things like this, so yeah, it's sort of, I guess it's difficult to talk about. It's difficult for us to discuss if we're like neither of us are really in family businesses, and I know I wouldn't touch one. um but
It
I mean,
still kills me.
okay, okay. um but look, I guess the flip side is, you mentioned it before, is that like if I'm going to build something of my own, and I'm about to in the next couple of months, is that what happens when it, what happens when even personally they don't support you, right?
Yeah, look, what happens when they don't support you and then the outside validation comes and then they seek you? You know what I mean? What does that look like? Because
Yeah,
again, it's family. Because at the end of the day, you're going to Thanksgiving.
right. Yeah, 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 yeah. So what's that like, Misfits? Like, let's say it's the bear. Let's say you want to open your own restaurant. Let's say you scrape all the money together. They give you the pitch about like it's one of the hardest industries in the world with the slimmest margins and the hours are long and like rah 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 rah. And the bear is two excellent seasons of accurate representation. Except this time you have no family supporting you. And so you come to them with this concept of, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to build, this is how I'm going to go about it, and I know I've got the skills to do it. And they're like, that's hard, are you sure? Like, I don't know, Chris. Like, really? Like, why don't you just go back to uni and get your degree? Right. So, right. And so here you are about to embark on, hardest, toughest, most challenging, most rewarding and defining moment of your life or your career or whatever it happens to be. And these people who should support you, um, don't,
Don't.
or might not, or drag their feet to get there, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you and I have discussed this. I don't have a scope on it. I don't have a scope on it because I've had pretty unfettered support. You know what I mean? And
That must be
almost,
nice.
yeah, almost, almost to the point where it's like, okay, am I delusional here? Are you guys feeding into a delusion? But it's, I'm sitting here thinking that, and I'm like trying to be like, damn, that sucks too. I would like to have someone, challenge it in a way that makes me feel like, okay, maybe this is something I have to fight for. I don't. I mean, I haven't had that. Not in the last couple years to where it's fresh.
Right.
Um, I definitely have experienced that. So the feeling I can connect to, and it's just not. Yeah, I don't know. And this is misfits. This is where these conversations get real. Like part of me wants to hide what I want to say to Chris, but
I'll
honestly,
just shoot. I'll give you
I
permission. There you
yeah,
go.
right, and you should have it. And I'll be honest with you, that fucking scenario sounds incredibly lonely.
You're right. It is. It is. Let me give some context, I suppose, for the Misfits at home. So I guess there's a few. Got a big project that I'm working on on the side of Misfits. So I designed a fintech app which has gone away for a whole bunch of funding, and we should hear back any moment now. But it's looking very, very good. It's a big deal. Everyone outside of my family is all excited and think it's a very big deal, which means I can't talk about it because it's going to be a big deal. But the first few people I go to are my folks or my brother, and let's just say, yeah, I wanted to build the restaurant, and they thought it was going to be hard, and they didn't like the food I was going to serve. And go, okay, and yeah, it is lonely. And even being an adult, it doesn't being a creative and being an adult, it doesn't get any easier. But I think, and the most painful thing for me, even now, but a few months ago, was realizing that every restaurant that I've wanted to build, it's been you haven't wanted to come. You know, I talked about the film earlier. Like, so here's a guy that's written, produced, cast, rolled out the whole thing, and was directing an independent feature, secured professional crew, secured a full cast, secured all of these sort of things, did it completely on my own. And to my parents, it was kind of like shrug their shoulders and like, oh, just let him do what he wants to do, I guess. When I was running the Kung Fu school at 21, it was sort of the same thing. When it was go to London and come back, it's like, well, now you're back. It's There's never really been, if we're talking about family support or even family interest in your career or your professional development, this is what hit me so hard, and probably why I was so angry and hurt at such a deep level that I'm probably still climbing out of, is realizing that I've never had it. And I'll probably never will. There might be a nice, then I don't know if that, we all want that filmic moment, of they didn't see it at first, but they came around in the end. And Luke and I joke because Luke has finally come around. Actually, to his credit, we've had those conversations, but we joke about the folks. Like, it'll be like on their deathbed, he'll still say, "You didn't go to uni." And like, and that'll be it. I'm not gonna get it. And there's got to be a part of me that's gonna have to get okay with that. Otherwise, it's just gonna keep hurting me, and I don't want to get bitter and resentful over it. I also don't want it to turn into like a giant "fuck you" and "fuck you," and don't want that. So, and Brody, the scope of this thing. So the bigger this thing gets, the more I have to negotiate. What this is gonna mean. And time will tell. I could be wrong. It'd be great if I am. But
Well, can I ask you something? And it's strange that it hasn't come up for me in our personal conversations, but say they come, they say they do come around.
Mm-hmm.
You and I have been through quite a bit together with Professional Misfits. I've watched you go through quite a bit already with what you're building. I mean, just from my personal standpoint, like if I was in that situation and then they came around, I don't know if I'd fucking care. Like
Well, that'd be sad too, wouldn't it? Like, what happens if it gets to that point where you finally get the thumbs up from dad and he's like, "Good job, kiddo," and I feel nothing. What if it's that Cat Stevens moment where it's, you've moved on?
yeah,
right? Uh, and I don't know. I don't have an answer for this yet.
Right,
And
right.
that's, part of life, misfits. Sorry. Um,
To be continued.
to be continued. Like, all of this is still being built. I know we're all very cryptic at the moment, and hopefully I can give you guys a proper payoff within the next few weeks. But that's just where things are at, and I'm sure you'll all understand. But it's I guess, to bring all of this together and sort of stitch it together in some sort of way. If we're talking about working with family, and if we're talking about a professional and familial relationship, I guess what we're trying to highlight and really tap into is, what's this parental or familial support of a profession or a career, you know, or of the lifestyle that you want to lead, right? Um,
Mm,
and you
mm.
know what? Maybe that's okay. I'm going to have a moment, but maybe that's why I'm a little bit lost this episode, because I don't know what any of that is for me.
Wow.
Sorry.
No. I hmm. No, I feel like Misfits, this one was definitely for you guys. We came into this and we had a plan and a structure, and I'm sitting back and I'm thinking about this, and you know, Chris, thank you, takes a level of vulnerability to go to where we're going. And then, you know, number two, for you guys, this is kind of what it is, right? You know, there's some things that you begin to explore and you might find an underlying piece, right? And yeah, it's interesting because I do wonder, if I didn't have that support, where would my integrity in this endeavor be, right? I don't know. I
And
don't know.
maybe you guys at home, you recognize something similar like this. I mean, not all of us work, in the family shop. Not all of us have
Mhm.
followed in the footsteps of our folks. We might not all work with our siblings. You know, you might have your own reasons for it as well. Um, I guess these are mine.
Yeah,
But also, on the flip side, I don't think I could only have achieved them independently. I suppose these aren't things that I know I mentioned earlier. It's like all very different skill sets and experiences. So it's not like my old man was a film director, and I went, no, fuck you, and went off and did my own thing. Like, no, he's an electrical engineer, so he's not a lot of crossover
right,
there.
right.
Um, yeah, but I think the moral that I just described is probably more important. Is if you're looking at, should you, would you, or could you work with family, and what that means, it's identifying those healthy principles and those healthy dynamics. And if I borrow a little bit from our episode 2 discussion, it's discussing, let's discuss the business and the ideas put on the table. Let's leave, family shit and how you used to steal all my toys and I pinned you down and cut your hair. Let's leave that off the table. And those sort of power dynamics, are intuitive in families, and that can be very difficult to recognize all of the time. you
And
know
set down, like you're talking about.
yeah, yeah. uh so who knows, you know um the
God, your
point,
stats at the beginning of this damn episode just blow my mind still, even
it's
coming.
still, yeah, it's, well, I had to some, like, where are we going to start with this thing, and what am I going to talk about, and like how do we get a grasp on it. And like, I was curious as well, like, because I knew the percentage for small businesses was quite high. I assume it's probably something comparable in the States.
Yeah, but just
Yeah.
for how many of them as I identify as family business, that is, yeah, just insane.
And
So
also,
we've,
Yeah.
There's got to be a ton of resources that could come in from this for us. You know what I mean? It's different perspectives. So please, in the comments, anything that you connected to the episode, just let us know, because we're exploring these too. We're actively exploring these too, and it continually raises new questions, and we'd love to hear your answers.
Mm. One final anecdote while we're talking about family businesses
Mm-hmm.
is you set up a lemonade stand for your boys.
I did, yeah,
And they made a
yeah,
profit.
yeah, yep, yes, they
Tell
did.
that story. Tell that story.
Yeah, well, look, and talking about what we did, and I don't want to stay too, much on the philosophy of this. It's like you said. I think coming into the lemonade stand, it wasn't just let's do something productive and make a lemonade stand and this and that. It was what can I leave these guys with, and if tomorrow I went away, I have full faith that they could run a lemonade stand enough to fucking procure means to end and be okay. And in that, it took there's a lot of lessons. There's a lot of teaching. There's a lot of moments that were pauses and things that you have to identify, as yourself. And I think what we're talking about in this too, it's weird. I think there needs to be some level of leadership in this dynamic. And if you can be, or you have the healthy example of that, God, it's just going to do great things. And not sitting here tooting my own horn, it's just that they received it well enough that it also allowed me the moments to teach, and
Yeah.
that's on them. That's on who they are growing up to be, and who they're choosing to be, and and the way they listen, present themselves. And yeah, so the lemonade stand, they wanted to do something. They said, I want to do something. I want to make money. They came up with landscaping. They came up with a lemonade stand. That was the most easily accessible option.
Yes.
We went through it together. They got all the
I think
things
that's
they
called
needed.
lowest barrier of entry to market.
Yes, it is. It is. And they took it away, and one of the things that was cool too is we talk about the principles in this episode. One of the things my boys presented that wasn't even me, because I wasn't there. I'm talking about cost efficiency and like what are we going to use for all these things, that they're like, yeah, no, we want the best lemonade.
Nice.
We want the best. And it was hand squeezed. It was a recipe from the fair that they went and researched themselves. And
Bro.
yeah, so they took it to their own place too. And I think, again, that's another piece of it. Leadership is great, but if you don't have your own drive within it, like there's not much further that you can take it. So these guys have been examples just as much as I've tried to be to them.
Is there not anything more all-American than a street side lemonade stand?
Yeah, hard pressed to find it, that's for sure.
That's cool as fuck, man. That is really, really cool. I think it's a great way to wrap up as well. Nice one. All right, so that's episode 12, Misfits. Love to hear what you think in the comments. Let us know. We know we kind of went sideways off the rails, came back and all around, but what's it like working with family? Would you recommend it? Would you never do it again? Episode 13 coming up next, Brody. What is it? Take a drink, Misfits. Every time I ask Brody what's coming up next and he doesn't know. Sorry, quick research, quick Google. No, all right. So episode 13, we're talking about work-life balance. This time around, my life's doing something weird. And I'm bringing back another French girl. I'm bringing back Mathilde Bernard Frondeberg. I don't know where she is in the world at the moment. I just shot her a message because she's traveling around the world with her husband and she's working remotely. And he actually quit his job.
What a wonderful person to bring in for work-life balance, my 100%.
Man. And the reason why it's so cool is because she came all the way from NYC all the way down to Sydney. So we know each other from LinkedIn. We finally got to meet up and have coffee. And I took her for coffee in Eclairs. And then I think a few nights later, we went for dinner and I met her bro and a few friends. And it was really, really, really cool. And so when we were setting up for the Misfits, I said, look, I need to book you for in a few months to get an episode. She's like, yeah, no problem. So we've got that set up. And so we're going to have that discussion of, how do you balance, family, kids, friends, your own life and work? What does this even mean? This whole work-life balance thing, like especially COVID really put a a magnifying glass over that, because
Yes.
we all of a sudden we realize we're working too much, we're burnt out, and this is just fucking ridiculous. So let's explore it. And so if I've got someone who's traveling the world, working remotely everywhere she goes, living the life, and her husband's a really interesting cat as well, because he's an engineer and he quit the well-paying, secure job to go, I don't know what's next, and I want to go travel with my wife, which I think is cool as fuck.
I do too. I
Yeah,
do too.
yeah. You got any
Take some
hot takes?
stones.
It does, and he's a genuinely lovely, lovely guy. But she's lovely as well, so of course. You got any hot takes on work-life balance, Brody? Because I know how you love the hustle culture.
Yeah, I think it's gonna bring to light some things that maybe I don't want to admit about myself.
That was my turn today, so it can be your turn next week.
Yeah, I feel.
Yeah. On that note, you can listen for free and you can watch us build Misfits on YouTube and on Spotify. You can catch us on Instagrams, on TikToks, on the Facebook group and LinkedIn group. And you can most definitely find us on Patreon and get all of the episodes 2 weeks early. I've been Chris.
I've been Brody.
And you stay classy, Misfits. Don't work with family. Or do. I'm not your mama. And we'll see you on the next one.